speaker is Nick Ver Steegh from Ohio University Libraries, and Nick is a Metadata Technologies Librarian at Ohio University Libraries, where he catalogs books and collaborates on archival digitization projects. And as a quick little intro to their project, in the fall of 2020 and winter of 2021, Ohio University Libraries produced a package of to export from the page field-based transcription projects into Content DM. And the scripts used from the page's API to validate field schemas and download transcripts. And they use Content DM's API and capture service to upload the reconciled field metadata. And so with that, I will let Nick share a little bit more.
Hello, I'm Nick Ver Steegh, a Metadata Technologies Librarian at Ohio University Libraries. The metadata part means that I do bibliographic cataloging as well as Dublin Core for digital archives. Technologies means that I use IT tools like Python, and librarian means that I'm in a library technical services department. My 5 minutes is about integrating from the page with Content DM using their respective APIs. So Ohio University Libraries Digital Initiatives Department digitizes our unique archival materials and posts them to the web via OCLC's Content DM digital collection management system. During the pandemic, we've been using from the page to both transcribe documents as well as gather field-based metadata on digitized collections, including TIFFs of dance posters and PDFs of D-Day veterans reminiscences. Back in the fall of 2020 and winter of 2021, Erin, a colleague from Digital Initiatives, asked if I might be able to help fix some integration problems she was having exporting from the page data into Content DM. From the page has a built-in Content DM integration that uses Content DM's IIIF manifest data to automatically export completed transcripts back into Content DM's full text transcription fields. This integration covers from the page's main traditional transcription role, but one of our collections consisted of PDFs that had been manually sideloaded into from the page because Content DM didn't support IIIF for PDFs at the time. So the built-in integration couldn't automatically pair back these transcripts with their Content DM objects. And two collections were using field-based transcription to gather metadata that corresponded to specific Content DM fields, but from the page, the from the page export would instead dump all the fields into the single transcript field as if they were unstructured text. Fortunately, from the page provides an API for transcript data, and Content DM has its own metadata API as well as a SOAP XML web service called Catcher that will accept edits from specific metadata fields, making it possible for us to roll our own automatic remediation of sideloaded PDFs and field-based transcriptions via scripts. So in October 2020, I started a Python package named Content DM util scripts to support our two unsupported use cases. Jeremy Stroud at the Washington State Library had already written a Python script that would take a JSON file of Content DM field edits and implement them via the SOAP XML catcher service. So Content DM util scripts could target JSON text files instead of having to do SOAP. To solve the sideloaded PDFs problem, I wrote a script called FTP to Catcher that pairs transcripts back to their corresponding Content DM objects. Luckily, the file names of manually uploaded PDFs were stored in front of the page in a manifest metadata field called DC source, and they happen to exactly correspond to a field in our Content DM metadata. So this script could take the from the page project and Content DM collection coordinates, do a search for the field name in Content DM, and then output a JSON catcher edit containing the from the page transcript. To solve the field-based transcription export problem, I wrote a script called From the Page Fields to Catcher that to match field-based transcriptions back to their corresponding Content DM fields. It takes a set of from the page project coordinates and a CSV file of from the page project field names mapped into Content DM field aliases and outputs a JSON catcher edit. Because these two scripts require from the page project field names and a Content DM based field aliases as input, I included two scripts that print the from the page and Content DM project and collection metadata to the terminal, print CDM info and print FTP info. Remediating field-based transcriptions turned out to have some tricky complications due to the way field-based transcriptions were handled and from the page. as well as a KIND-DM catcher bug. From the page's API renders field-based transcriptions as HTML or TEI XML documents, so that use the field schema that was current when the entry for the object was made. So fields must be scraped out of the markup, and if the field schema changed while the transcription project was in progress, there can be multiple schemas in a project. So I wrote a script called scan FTP fields to report on what schemas exist in a from the page project so that old schemas can be manually updated. KIND-DM has controlled vocabularies applied to select metadata fields that from the page doesn't cross-reference. So I wrote a script called scan FTP vocabs, which outputs a report on what terms found in from the page fields based transcriptions projects are, but terms that are in the from the page project but aren't in the KIND-DM collection, so that they can be added to the KIND-DM collection or corrected. KIND-DM's catcher service has a bug related to controlled vocabularies that makes it silently fail to implement edits. So I wrote a script called catcher diff, which takes a catcher JSON edit and produces a report on what edits would have been made if those edits were effectively applied. So we can check to see if failures have occurred. Since the original development of KIND-DM util scripts last year, KIND-DM added IIIF support for PDFs, and from the page has developed a metadata creation feature, which may alleviate some of the integration problems the scripts were intended to solve. I hope that KIND-DM util scripts will become obsolete as soon as possible. Thanks.